It's been a little over 2 years since Future Redeemed was released. Yeah, time really flew by. This game provided us a lot of answers to questions I had for years, but also provided answers to questions I never even had. In particular, in an offhanded remark by Rex, he confirms an extremely relevant piece of information about blade genetics. Core crystals are a dominant trait. Huh. You don't say. So for this year's April Fool's Day weird Xeno sex thing topic, I thought it would be on brand to talk about crossbreeding with blades. Be honest with yourself. You, over there, in the gaming chair with the dry-ass lips. Don't be licking those lips while I'm talking, and I know for a fact you have thought about boinking one of these blades. These ladies and men and they thems range from across all areas of the thick spectrum. They're all beautiful, except you, and you've thought about it. So you're going to learn about the consequences of your theoretical actions. What goes into the creation of a blade child? Now, I'm just going to point out that long before Xenoblade 3 came out, people said I was a weirdo when I asked the question of whether or not a human and a blade could have a child. It was an interesting thought at the time. There was no evidence of it happening, but Corinne mentions that humans and blades were married at one point. And while I still may be a weirdo, my curiosity was rewarded. Because what do you know, Xenoblade 3 gave us some hybrid blade children. Mio, Glimmer, and Linka have very clear parentage. Mio has Rex and Nia, Glimmer has Rex and Pyra, and Linka has Zeke and Pandoria. Keep in mind that this explanation is going to assume that genetics on Allrest and Bionis work exactly the way they do on Earth, and that Rex is some sort of authority on the subject. I think it's safe to assume that they do work similarly because Klaus and Zanza clearly took inspiration from what they knew when crafting their respective worlds. Not to mention that Rex and Shulk are basically vessels of exposition in this scene, so the writers are conveying information directly to us with them. But it is worth mentioning that we don't know for sure that genetics work this way in Ionios. Before we can explain how this all works, we have to go over a few things. Rex states that the core crystal trait is dominant over the non-core crystal trait. If his information is accurate, this leaves out the possibility of an incomplete dominant trait where both traits combine to form a new trait, and a co-dominant trait where multiple traits blend and are expressed together. For our purposes, we're just looking at typical dominant and recessive genes. An example of a dominant trait is having freckles. The lack of freckles is recessive. You might think that this means if one parent has freckles and the other doesn't, that their child will have freckles, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Each parent contributes what are called alleles, a set of genetic instructions that, when combined, result in the child's DNA structure. Every single trait a person has is affected by this process. It's what makes each of us different. There's a near infinite amount of combinations of genes, and every person has their own. Of course, we all have our own unique wants, thoughts, and feelings, but down to the very atoms that make us up, we are one of a kind. To make this easier to understand, let's draw up what's called a Punnett square. This is a pretty simple way to display potential genetic outcomes for offspring. It shows the genotypes and phenotypes. Genotype means genetic sequence, while phenotype is the characteristics you see on a person. Someone might carry the no freckles gene, but that doesn't mean that they don't have freckles. For example, let's say both parents have both of the freckles alleles, big F for having freckles and little f for lacking them. Each parent only contributes one allele. Everyone has two, but when the child is created, this process borrows one from each parent. So by displaying them on this chart here, we can see the 4 possible combinations of these alleles. 1 pair of big Fs, 2 pairs with both a big and small f, and a pair of small f's. Because having freckles is a dominant trait, 75% of the time, with this combination of parents, their child will have freckles. But because they both carry the recessive no freckles trait, there is a 25% chance that their child will not have them. So, like I said before, even though both parents have freckles, there is a chance that they produce a child with none. This time, let's try and answer our core crystal question. Rex is a human being. He may have had a core crystal for a bit, but for our purposes, let's assume that this had no effect on him. He just doesn't have the core crystal gene. So, he would have 2 small C's. Pyra does have a core crystal, and she doesn't have parents in the typical sense, so she would have 2 big C alleles. As you can see, every single possible outcome from these 2 produces a child with a core crystal, and sure enough, Glimmer does have a core crystal like her mom. But things change once we get to the next generation. For this, let's swap out Pyra for Nia, and see the outcomes from their daughter Mio and her partner Noah. We know Mio's allele pair, the same as with Rex and Pyra. Noah comes from the world of Bionis, so again, he lacks the core crystal gene. This means that he has 2 small C's. Because of both Noah and Rex's genetics, Noah and Mio's children only have a 50% chance to be born with core crystals. If we look at their child Gondor, it doesn't seem like he has one. It's possible it's in a place other than his chest, like with Juniper or Jin, but that's an extremely uncommon occurrence. A vast majority of blades have their cores located on their chests, just like Nia and Mio, so I don't think Gondor's would just jump somewhere else. I can safely say that based on this information, Gondor completely lacks the core crystal gene. We've run into a bit of a problem here, though. Since we've established that Gondor doesn't have that gene, how does Niall have Nia and Mio's core crystal? It's unclear if Matthew has a core, but Niall clearly does. We don't know what alleles their parents had, but like we've established, it's within the realm of possibility for them to have different phenotypes. The more important question is, how does she have this one? From the few examples available, the shape and color of the cores are passed down from the parents. And that's the beauty of genetics. For every single possible phenotype someone could have, there's a multitude of alleles at play. So there's probably a Nia core shape gene, a gene for the color, the size, maybe even the density. It's the same for all of us. Is your hair red or blonde? Are you tall or short? Does your ear look like this or like that? All of these are influenced by millions upon millions of allele pairings, and I think that's pretty cool. So if you ever wanted to make a Blade OC or something like that, you can draw from this scientific information, because of course the most important thing about creating a fictional world isn't the rich history or fleshed out characters, it's whether or not it all stands up to incredible and unnecessary scrutiny. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This was a fun little project to work on over the past couple of weeks. I've been considering making a video about this topic for a while, so I'm glad that I was able to actually get this out. I want to take a second to thank my channel members, to Play in Polygloom, my Legendary Blade members, and Afloat Sign, my Rare Blade member. Polygloom in particular was actually integral to the writing of this video. I could not have done it without them. I greatly appreciate the help with writing the script. I wanted to make sure I was communicating the correct facts. I didn't want to spread any misinformation, so again, thank you very much. As of the recording of this video, Xenoblade X DE is not yet out, but seeing as this is an April 1st video, by the time you're seeing this, I've probably finished the extra content in the game, so look forward to seeing a couple videos about that, my thoughts, about the finale. I don't know what the future holds. This is pre Xenoblade X DE ending XenoBits. I don't know what it's gonna be like. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what our characters get up to. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.